Hey, I think we're live.
All right.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you may be joining us. The technology behind webinars always fascinates me, and sometimes it works flawlessly. A lot of them work flawlessly today, in fact. My name is Tim Patterson. I am Trade Show Guy. My business is Trade Show Guy Exhibits, and I've been in this industry, 13, 14 years, going on 15, so it'll be next year, be 15, and I mainly work with clients to do new booth projects, although I certainly consult with how to make yourself a better exhibitor. And in the idea of bringing you good ideas on how to be a better exhibitor, I decided to bring in Andy Sachs of Spark Presentations. Andy, can you hear me?
Sure can, yeah.
Good. I just want to let you know that I was watching the actual broadcast come on board. It was like about a 10-second delay, and that was in my ears. I've turned that off, so now I'm focusing on you.
All right.
Andy's on the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast. Andy, I've known. Oddly enough, we've never met in person. And we've talked. We've done a couple of webinars together over the years. We've talked a bunch. We've traded emails. He's done some writing for me. I may have done some for you for the blog. But obviously, and we've participated in trying to get some jobs, some projects now and then. Just hasn't worked out. But there's a lot of competition out there, so you don't get everything, as we well know. But we certainly get our share, and we have a good time with it. Andy is what I would say. Someone that excels at how to engage people that come to your booth, walk by your booth, and once they get into your booth, how do you deal with them? And so I thought that would be a really neat thing to do. And so the name of the webinar, if you go to TradeshowGuyWebinars.com, is called "Make Yourself Memorable: How to Attract and Qualify Trade Show Attendees." There's a lot under that umbrella, isn't there, Andy?
Yes, there is, absolutely.
And so we could start anywhere. I would like to hear maybe just briefly. And you've been in the industry longer than me, 18 years or so. Your company, Spark Presentations.
Yeah,
and you're such a young-looking guy.
I know. Carefully preserved.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been in the industry for about 18 years, and this training, and actually the topic of staff training, grew out of my work being a booth presenter for companies. So they would hire me as one of those guys who stands in the little theater inside the booth and gives a 5 or 10 minute product presentation, maybe twice an hour, about what that company has to offer. And what I started finding over and over again is that I would, through the presentation, bring in 10, 20, 50 plus people for a given presentation. We would build a nice big crowd around the booth. And then the moment the presentation ended, the crowd would just kind of dissipate. Yeah. And I really wanted to help the booth staff convert the people who we physically brought into the booth to make them into prospects and potentially leads and potentially sales. And I found that there was some discomfort about doing that. They didn't know how to bridge that gap, how to start a conversation, how to qualify a prospect, how to do it all inside the chaos of the trade show. So the training grew out of a desire to help them with that transition.
And I think that's a very apt word you used, chaos. I tend to describe trade show floors as very chaotic, and it's different than any other situation a person will be in. I mean, you may be a great salesman. You may be great at knocking down numbers and getting appointments and going to people's office and sitting and meeting with them for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Maybe you're taking them to lunch, who knows, and you make the deal. But that is not the situation that applies at a trade show. You have hundreds, if not thousands of people walking by your booth every hour, and you want to connect with as many as you can, and you want to make sure you connect with the right people. And so it really comes down to who are the right people, what do you say to them, and how do you do it in a quick, effective way that's still polite to people once you realize, hey, this guy is not a potential customer, but you still want to disengage with them properly. So there's a lot to go to this. So you had to come up with some sort of training with these people and work with clients, and you probably had some trial and error in there, wouldn't you think?
I did. I'm glad you mentioned the chaos of the show floor, because I like to call it the bizarro world of sales. It's this idea that You know, most salespeople, as you said, are used to very calm, private, one-on-one conversations. Maybe you're at lunch, maybe you're in a boardroom. This is not that at all. The trade show floor is so chaotic. It's filled with, as you said, hundreds, thousands of people. Everybody is going in a different direction to do a different thing. You might have noise from the booth next to yours or the booth down the aisle when they're doing their presentation. Your competitors are also right there on the show floor. So there's a lot at stake because you have to make the most of the investment you've made in the booth, but also the hurdles to capitalizing on your placement on the show floor are pretty high because you have all of the noise, you have all of the sights and sounds on the show floor, which are visually distracting. People may be out of their own time zone, they may be sleep deprived, they, you know, half their head may be thinking about things that are happening back at home or back at their office. So at best you have half of their attention. And somewhere in the midst of all of this, you have to make a case to work with your company and spend money with your company. And that just ain't easy.
And so it really boils down to a staffer who is well prepared for this. They've got to understand what the company is doing there. They got to understand the goals of the company. They've got to buy into all that to be a willing participant of that as well. And so I think the issue is getting them to understand all that. What is important to the company? What is important to the situation? And then you it sounds like from the trainings I've heard you discuss, there are certain questions that you kind of set up, and you even do some role playing in these trainings. So without getting into all the training, what kind of things do you advise booth staffers to do to make themselves open? Is there body stances they take? I mean, certainly crossing your arms or playing with your phone tends to turn people off. And so we could start there. What's your body language got to be with when you are in the booth? Where do you stand? Those types of things. Let's start there. That's
a very good place to start. And I'll even take it one little half step back and talk about the mindset that you have to have that will inform where you are physically in the booth. And again, going back to this idea of a very chaotic show floor, there are some percentage of attendees out there who you really want to grab, you want to engage. They represent your best potential customers. You have to somehow pick them out from the crowd. How do you do that? Where do you place yourself in the booth? And then what should be in your mind as you do it? And the one key idea I want to get across, and I say this, of course, Tim, with all due respect to the amazing physical booths that you create for your clients, which I have seen, but I believe that the most important part of the booth is the staffers, is the human beings who are standing in the booth wearing that company shirt, representing that company. And it's easy for a lot of staffers to walk into a booth and they'll see this beautiful booth set up and the demo stations and the colors and slogans on the side and the front desk and everything. And it's easy for them to look at that and think, wow, the booth is the star of the show and my job is to promote the booth. In fact, in my experience, it's really the opposite. The staffers, the human beings representing the company, are the stars of the show. They're the ones who make or break the booth on average more than any other aspect of the booth. And the booth still plays a really key role, but I believe it's a supporting role to help the staffers do the best job they can with the attendees. And this is true, again, whether you're in a retail store or a restaurant, any place that you go potentially to do business and you're interacting with a human being, you're going to be influenced by the behavior of that human being representing the organization more on average than anything else about it, more than the design of the building, more than, you know, the food at the restaurant. You'll be influenced by how the waiter or waitress treats you. And it's the same idea here. So once you have that in mind, you say, okay, I know that I'm central to my booth success at the trade show. What can I do to maximize myself? And this is where you start with the posture and the placement in the booth and all the rest. So I would suggest, first of all, that wherever you're standing, you make yourself look like you actually want to be there. And I know that sounds like the most basic piece of advice you could ever imagine. But any of you out there who walk the trade show floor and who just glanced at staffers, you see evidence in just all different shapes and sizes of people who clearly don't want to be there. They're staring at their clothes, they're on their phone, they're talking to each other, they're facing the back of the booth.
They're eating a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. Everything about them says, please avoid me. I don't want to engage with you. So that's obviously not sending a good signal to the attendees whose money you need to pay your salary and justify the booth. So instead, you want to take the opposite track. You want to make sure that you're standing upright. You want to make sure you have a smile on your face. You want to make sure that you're standing at or near the edge of the booth, either just behind it, just on the edge, just on the aisle, anywhere in that zone. And you want to make sure that you are free of distractions within yourself, which means not eating or drinking anything unless it's something that's available to the attendee that you're using as a lure.
Like a sample. Yep.
Yes. Not playing with anything, no t-shirts, no phones, no tablets. Again, the only exception to that is if you had a prize in your hand that would be a lure to the attendee. And, you know, looking around the aisle, looking up and down the aisle, smiling, looking like somebody who is eager, ready, willing to engage. And remember that regardless of what you're doing, whether you're on the positive side of that spectrum or the negative side, the attendees are looking at you. Even ones you don't even know are looking at you. They might be checking you out from a distance. They may be worth a lot of money to you. And if they don't see you engage in this behavior, they may read into it. If they see you drinking coffee, they may say, well, that guy's not at 100%. He's drinking coffee. He's clearly tired. You know what? I only have 3 more minutes on the show floor. I won't bother with him. I'll go to the competitor's booth instead. Just like that, you lost the lead.
It's interesting. Such a small thing can be such a decisive moment in someone's decision-making process to go one direction or the other. That's really fascinating. And hands in pocket, hands not in pocket.
You know, I leave that as a judgment call to the person because everybody relaxes a little differently. Maybe one hand in the pocket. Maybe you want to go the GQ model route, whatever works for you. But you know, again, I don't want to dictate the exact posture as much as the mindset. If if you can really feel yourself out there feeling like you see an opportunity here, you're eager to engage with people, you're excited to learn about them, you're eager to show off the products in your booth, you're excited to be at the beginning stages of building new relationships. However you express that physically for you will probably be spot on, and it'll be authentic because it came from that motivation.
Right. And I think that's the key thing is don't be phony. And there are certain people, you know, that just are automatically great at that. They're natural self-promoters. They're natural company promoters. They're just engaging. They got that charisma. Others are not, but they can be trained. It's something you can learn to engage properly when people walk by. So now that these people are walking by and you've somehow gotten their attention, they come up to talk to you. There's a process that goes through. You must qualify them. You must figure out what's important to them, while also getting your message out to them without dumping a bunch of information on them. You don't want to be the info dump person when someone that doesn't need it. So what's the next step that you like to talk about?
Well, I like to think what you need to do right off the bat is show them some value in engaging with you. And the name of this webinar is Making Yourself Memorable. This certainly goes hand in hand with that idea. Right off the bat, in the first few seconds, I start engaging with them. I know that at any second, they could just simply walk away. Again, that's unlike most sales meetings. You could be talking to a prospect who just feels like they're done with you and is going to go talk to one of the other 1,000 people in the room. So you have to show them right off the bat why, of all the things they could be doing on the show floor, you are the most valuable. You have the biggest payoff. And I believe that the best way to do that is, rather than starting right off the bat talking about yourself, your company, your products, your booth, how amazing you are, which is the direction that most staffers take, they start off with, hey, aren't we great? Look at us. Look at our cool booth. Look at all our awards. Look at our products. We're awesome. Right off the bat, you want to turn the tables. Start talking about that attendee. Start showing an interest in them, their situation, what brought them to the show floor, their role in their organization, their challenges, their strategies, their needs, their timetables, their budgets. Any information that you can pull out of them will, first of all, help you define their value to you as a lead, and will also, for them, you're sending them these signals by asking questions that say, I care about you. We'll get to my booth in a minute. It'll be there, don't worry. But for the moment, I care about you. I'm interested in you. I want to know what brought you over. I want to understand you as a prospect. I'm here to serve you, not the other way around. And if you can do that, even if your conversation only lasts 30 seconds and then they get pulled away to something else, and in that 30 seconds you've made one single impression by asking questions, and that impression is, I care about you. If that's the only idea they come away with, you've created some warmth, you've created some interest, and that's somebody who's likely to come back to you another time.
I think that's very key, and there are certain questions that you could ask. And there's no one question that works for every situation, of course, but there's a lot of things. And I'm sure that when you sit down with a company to do training with them, you probably
Yes.
work through a series of questions that are based on obviously the service or product that they're offering.
Mhm.
And it may be something like, how'd you get started in this job or industry, or what kind of issues do you have with shipping? Maybe you're trying to sell shipping services or something.
Yeah.
What's the most important issue that you run across? What's your biggest challenge? Those types of things. So are there? There's a couple of starting points from there.
Mhm.
I think how did you get started in this job or industry gets them talking. I think you mentioned that in one of the blog posts that we put together
Yeah.
based on your information. Are there others that come to mind that are also useful and workable?
Yeah, there are a few. And when I do this in a full training, we break them out into 3 sections. So the first one is what I call connection questions. And these are the very first things you ask right at the beginning of the conversation, first few seconds of interaction. And the goal here isn't to dig and find out a lot about them just yet. The goal is to really put them at ease, to establish.
Just make some sort of connection, as you put it. You're trying to figure out what is important to them, what is important to you. And okay, we've made a bit of a connection here. That's all we need for this step.
And it's really, a lot of people at this stage, for a few seconds in, they may have just had a bad experience at the previous booth. They may be tired. They may be grumpy. They may be late for something else. They may not quite be ready to tell you their life story. And you want to sort of suss them out a little bit, and they want to do the same for you. And you want to get a feel for what their comfort level is for engaging with you. So I like to start with just easy softball questions. So the easiest one of all that I love is just the straightforward one. Hey, well, what can I help you find? That's it. Now, that's a lot different than saying, can I help you? Which, in my opinion, is the worst question in all of retail. That's a closed
because
question.
The answer is a yes or no. No.
Well, and what happens, Tim, if I say, hey, Tim, welcome. Can I help you? What do you say?
Well, if I'm not interested, I'll go no.
Right.
Or if I don't want to be bothered, I'll go no. Or it's easy to say no.
Right.
It's really easy to say no to that question, even if you want them to help you. Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens. I say, can I help you? You say no, and that's it. That's the end of the conversation. There's nowhere else to go. But if I turn that into an open question, which is what can I help you find? Then I encourage you to think through all the things you might need at that moment and come up with the best thing. And again, I'm also signaling to you, whatever it is you need, I'm here for you. And that might be, you might be looking for something in the booth. You might be looking for the cafeteria. You might be looking for the bathroom. But it's a nice big open question that says, whatever it is you need, inside the booth or out, I'm going to do my best to help you.
What can I help you find, or what can I help you with?
Yeah. They may have something with them, something interesting that they're carrying that you may want to comment on, something interesting they're wearing. Hey, where'd you get that? That's interesting. Is that a prize from another booth? Tell me about, how you won that prize. Any question like that is going to give you information about what they care about at the show. Are they just there circling around trying to get prizes? Did they win it by volunteering for something? Did they watch a demo? How long have they been at the show? How many prizes have they collected? All of that will give you interesting background about what is on their mind as they walk the show floor. Are they just there to collect prizes? Are they there for information? And then my favorite one in this category, you already stole my thunder on this.
Oh, no.
Is how did you get started in this job, or how did you get started in this industry? And this probably wouldn't be first, but if you have someone who's friendly, you might ask this as maybe a third question. And the idea is that probably no one on the show floor is doing exactly what they thought they would do at 5 years old, right? You and I aren't. Probably the attendee you're talking to isn't. So that means somewhere in their life they took a left turn. Something unexpected happened that led them to where they are. So if you show interest in their background and say, hey, tell me how you got here. How'd you get started in the industry? You're inviting them to tell you about themselves, which everybody loves doing. And in the story, in the details they feed you about what they grew up, where their interest was growing up, where they went to college, their first job, they knew someone who referred them over here, they did a project. All of that is going to think about how much information about them you can generate in one long answer. About the background, about their skill level, about their area of interest, about their technical abilities, about their role as decision makers. All of that can be embedded. And meanwhile, as they're talking, they're saying to themselves, this person really cares about me. They're not even bothering to talk about their booth yet. So you're showing them it really is all about the attendee at that moment.
I'm curious. This is a bit of a sideline, but do you, when you do trainings or talk with people that are going to talk to booth visitors, do you have them put sort of a mental time limit? Okay, give me 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10, or do you just say, well, if it's going the way it's supposed to go and go as long as it needs to go? I'm just curious if you guys talk about the time element.
That's a great question. It comes up quite often, and I'm always a little wary about imposing hard and fast rules because I want conversations to flow organically. If you're my staffer, I don't want you to have a mental timer in your head as you're talking to attendees that makes you prone to distraction and makes you very focused on when you're going to finish. If you have, potential $10 million customer, which happens all the time, by the way, and they take an hour of your time, I bet you'd say that's a good investment of the hour, right?
It's a good, worthwhile time. Yeah, investment. I would agree.
The only exception to that is if you have a very limited number of staffers. So you may have, 3 staffers in your booth and 15 people demanding attention. You may want to do some triage and find out what each person wants and see if you can put them into groups and handle them in groups that way. But in general, I would say spend as much time with a prospect as they seem interested in spending with you, because you never want to be the first one to end the conversation and say, well, I'm done with you, I'm walking away now.
Right.
Right.
Right. And so now you've done the collection, excuse me, the connection. And what comes after the connection? Because you've gotten them going, but now you got to somehow steer it to the product or service, because that's why you're there, and you want to make sure that's why they're there.
We're getting there, but we're not quite there. So the very first thing we did is the connection part. You and I, we talked for 2 minutes. I asked you a couple of softball questions. Now we're getting comfortable with each other. We're getting a feel for each other. The next thing I would do is what I call collection questions, which is a more assertive process of collecting specific information from them that, again, will inform how valuable they are to you as a lead, what they have to offer you, and all the while you're continuing to ask them about them, which is reinforcing the idea that you really do care about them, and hopefully you really do. So let's say that you've alluded to a process in your current business and you're at the show looking for a new company with a new product or service that's going to change this awful process you have that you really want to change. So I might say to you something like, hey, Tim, you mentioned that you have this process, you're really not comfortable, you're looking for an alternative. Tell me about how you handle that today. And I just ask you to walk through for me, piece by piece, step by step, what that's like for you now. In high school debate, we used to call this inherency. This is what the current situation looks like, and that's going to tip me off about where your pain points are. And I'm going to start thinking as you tell the story, when I retell this back to you, where can I insert my product or service into the story in order to change the ending from negative to positive? Another question you might ask, I like this one for folks who show up not really knowing what they want. And this happens more than you might think, even in industry shows. You go to an industry show and you figure, well, everybody here's an insider, we all speak the same language. Quite a bit, that's not true. Somebody's new in the industry, they're from a different division, they have a different job, they're an engineer, you're not, whatever. So, quite often they show up not speaking your language, even though you occupy the same space. And they may not even know exactly what they're looking for. They just know they have the problem, but they haven't quite identified a solution set they want. So one question I like to ask at this stage is, hey, forget the terminology, forget the company names, forget the product niche and all that. Just talk to me. If you could build your perfect product from scratch, what would it look like? How big would it be? What would it do? What pieces would it have? How much would it cost? How fast would it complete its task? Anything else that you can think of, and get them to come up with a list of 3, 5, 7 things that they would really want a product to do in the abstract. And their answer is making your life easier, because once they answer, you can feed into a demo by saying, that's great. You know what? You mentioned 7 things. We have a product that I can tell you right off the bat has 5 of those, and 2 of them are available with an upgrade. Let me walk you through it. So you've created a match between what they've said they wanted and what you have to offer. And now you have an eager attendee who wants to hear your demo, not just an attendee who's being pulled through the demo.
And that's a great question. I love that question, asking them to describe their perfect sort of generic product for this particular question or challenge that they have. And if your product doesn't cover that, that's a great information to pass back to the R&D or the people that are continuing to make the product better, so that you've got some decent information. It's good for market research, trade shows. Certainly, we could talk about that forever. But those are the types of things that you don't just discount that information. You make sure that gets noted and passed back to the people it should be passed back to.
Yes, trade shows are a great opportunity for market research. It's really one of the unsung opportunities there. So if you ask that question 10 times a day, and 7 out of 10 times you heard the same something, some piece embedded in each one of those answers, and you started to hear a common thread, after the show you might say, you know what, a lot of folks out there are asking for this feature, and we don't have it, but this is something we could do and introduce at the show next year, and our market is telling us they want it, so we should be listening.
They want chocolate chip cookies and M&Ms in the cookies, you know.
And I'm one of those people, yes. So I totally get that. So there's one more step in the process of the
we
question.
did the connection, we did the collection,
and the next one is confirmation. Now, of course, I'm just giving you 1 or 2 questions for each category.
Your training goes deep into this, which I think is great. So
right, you could brainstorm an unlimited number of questions. You may already have questions that your team uses that you know work well. You can slot those in there. But this is my favorite part. This is the payoff for the question section. This is when you absolutely 1,000% prove to them that not only did you ask the questions, not only did you listen to the answers, but you're able to synthesize the answers in your head into a full understanding of what it is they want. No one does this on the show floor. So here's how you do it. You ask what I call a confirmation question, and it starts like this. Tim, let me see if I've got this straight. You're looking for a product or service that has this feature, and this feature, so that you can complete this process, meet this need, and come out with this benefit and this benefit. Do I have that right? Now, of course, when you ask that, that whole big middle part where I'm talking about the features and the benefits, you can't say features and benefits. That should be filled in with the information that you've picked up from the attendee during the conversation. So you've taken all their answers and you've reframed it into one feedback question. And you said, let me see if I've got this. So you're hinting, you may not be right. Then you feedback, you're looking for a product or service that does this, this, and this. You can enjoy these features, you get these benefits, and you get it in this time frame, you get it on this budget, whatever it is they gave you, you feedback, and then you follow it up with this nice soft question. Do I have that right? And you give them an opportunity to say, it's mostly right, but this little thing that you said is not quite right. Let me fix that. And you give them a chance to tweak it a little bit. But keep in mind, something amazing happens at this moment, because you're using a technique that you're using all day with every prospect. So to you, it starts to sound natural and normal. But the attendees on the show floor are not getting this question from any other booth, not their competitors, not the guys down the aisle, not any other show they've been to. Nobody asks this. Nobody goes to this level of comprehension. So while you're sitting there saying, you're looking for a product or service that does this and this, do I have this right? You're going to hear your own voice in your ears, but they are going to hear angels sing. Because someone at a trade show booth listened to them. Someone cared, someone gets them, someone understands. And it's amazingly rare how often those moments happen. If you can pull that off, you will see it in their eyes, how much it means to them. And I believe that if you can do that and you get the confirmation from them, you're most of the way to the sale right there. And the rest of it is just the details of how much and when, and does it do this or that.
Right. Does it fit the budget completely? Or do we have to pay a little now, a little later? And I think that's a great way to approach it, because so many trade show booths, and you've seen them all, you've seen them by the thousands. People are in the booth, they're handing out samples, they're doing this and that, and they've got a small little job. That's all they do, is they make sure that the little stuff gets poured or the demo gets whatever. And so they don't worry about all that other big picture stuff, or the process that you just went through to get them from we're going to make a connection, we're going to figure out what they want and offer them what they need, and then confirm that that's what they want, and all of a sudden the angels sing. That just doesn't happen very often at a trade show.
It has to. This is your booth. This is your money. You invested in this booth. You pulled your employees from their regular jobs. You're losing them out of their regular jobs as marketers, or from their sales territory, or from their engineering room, or whatever it is. You lost that week of work for them in order to drag them onto the show floor, put them in your booth, and put shirts on. If you're going to do that, you have to get value out of their presence. They have to pay off for you in the booth. If not, you've wasted the opportunity which for most shows only comes once a year, to show up in person and engage eye to eye with your attendees and with your market, which generally doesn't happen any other time of year. These shows are hugely expensive. If you're not making them pay off, you're wasting the opportunity. I hate to see it happen. That's why I have.
Yeah, and I think that's to the point. Back to the reason why you even do trade shows is that because you've got a very focused audience of influence and decision makers, influencers, and decision makers, people that are ready to buy. They want to see what's out there. They want to see what's new. They want to see what's in your booth. And if you don't have the process to get them from that introduction, or even the correct introduction through that process that you just described, you're going to be behind a lot of your competitors who at least have some of that process in place. And if you have the whole process in place, boy, and you've got your entire staff that not only has the process in place, but they've rehearsed it and they've bought in, they understand what the company is doing there, and they realize that you've got 3 days to do this, and so you've got 8 hours today, 8 hours the next day, 4 hours the day after, whatever the numbers are. They are there, and they're there to play, and they're there to make it worth your while every single minute that the show floor is open.
Yeah,
that's terrific, Andy.
It's not even neutral. There's a negative impact. If you take somebody who could be your prospect and you don't engage them and you send them negative signals and you turn them off through not showing interest in them or not walking over to engage them, whatever it is, that's somebody who you should expect is going to turn right around and walk into your competitor's booth. So it's not just that you lost your own customer, you have made it more likely that you've created a customer for your competitor. And surely you didn't come to the trade show to do that.
And if you do something that shows that you're a bit of a jerk, or even in that moment you're a jerk, that they're going to go to the company competitor and say that guy over there was kind of a jerk, and so that's going to get passed around. Yeah,
and we talk about this all the time. Every one of us trades stories with our friends about a bad experience. This guy was rude to me. This lady didn't help me. Those things stick with you for years. And people will extrapolate from that. So, Tim, if you go to the booth and I don't engage you in the way you want to be engaged, if I don't show interest in you, if I'm not warm, if I don't look like I want to be there, you're not going to say, Andy Sachs wasn't nice to me. You're going to say, Andy Sachs's company doesn't want me as a customer. You're going to extrapolate from your experience and apply it to the entire booth and the company that's represented by that booth. And you're going to say to yourself, I don't want to do business with that company. Even if Andy gets fired tomorrow, these guys clearly aren't interested in me. I'll take my business elsewhere. Yeah. And that's the ballgame, right?
Yeah, and I love how you encapsulate that. I mean, we were going to spend 30 minutes on this. We're at 30 minutes now, so this is terrific. Let me kind of transition here. And I will invite people. We have a handful of folks here on the webinar. I know it's going to be reposted on the blog as well as YouTube on the Trade Show Marketing channel. And I know that I already got emails this morning, can't make the live webinar, but I want to watch the replay. So the replay will be available. So I'm curious, Andy, what have you got coming up? You got stuff that you'd like to at least mention that you're doing in the near future?
I do. I've got some nice gigs coming up. Some of your audience may actually be at these shows. If they are, I invite them to come by and say hi. Next week, I will be a booth MC for a high-tech company called NVIDIA at a show called Citrix Synergy at the Sands Expo Center in Las Vegas. So if you're there, please come by the NVIDIA booth, say hi to me. A couple of weeks after that, I will be in London at an IT security show called Info Security, and I'm pretty excited. That's for a company, one of my longest-term clients called Plixer. And a couple of weeks after that, I will be in New Orleans, be part of a team of staffers who are practicing what I've been preaching for the last 30 minutes. We'll be working for Samsung at a hospitality show at the Morial Convention Center called High Tech. And that's going to be a really fun show. We have the booth set up like a hotel, and in each room we'll have different large format displays that Samsung makes. We'll be walking people through and not only talking about the TV, but of course, listening to the attendees, right?
Right. Fun industry, isn't it, Andy?
Yes, it is. It is.
And sparkpresentations.com is the best place to latch on to you?
Yes, the URL is sparkpresentations.com. You'll see a nav bar at the top, and you want to click on where it says Trade Show Training to learn more about the full in-person trade show training programs we do, which is the last half an hour on steroids. We do 2 hour, 4 hour, 6 hour versions of this in person, a lot of hands-on stuff. We do slides and workbooks. We do role playing. So it's really in-depth. It's really fun. And then also there's a trade show presenter page for people who are interested in the booth presentation services. booking me or somebody who works through me to be a product presenter, an MC, a juggler, a magician, any of those services inside the booth.
Cool. Andy, thanks again. I'm going to cut you loose. I know you've got stuff to do. I do too. And I don't see any questions come up, so we'll just leave it at that and say thank you very much. Again, sparkpresentations.com, trade show training. Andy's the guy. And if you've watched even the last couple of minutes of this, you know that he knows what he's talking about, and he'll do you and your company some good. So thanks again, Andy. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. You too.